Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and we're with two distinguished guests, one coming to us from California and the other from Brussels. From California, Dr. Edward Spencer, MD. Welcome, Ed.
Hello, thank you.
And from Brussels, Melanie Richan of the European Coalition Against Covert Harassment, ucatch.org. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you, Alfred.
Now, in the past week, there's been extraordinary developments on both continents, both in Europe and here in North America, South America as well, in our field. Very briefly, in North America, in California, in fact, Dr. Spencer participated in this and was a witness. The city of Richmond, California passed resolution number I-1 in support of the Space Preservation Act and the Space Preservation Treaty to permanently ban space weapons and thereby ban the HAARP chemtrails weapon of mass destruction and mind control weapon and weather warfare weapon and a whole series of other weapons. And in Europe, Melanie Richan has now, as a result of going to court, has official documentation of official fraud and prevarication that has been carried out by the police department in Brussels against targeted individuals who are trying to stop gang stalking and other crimes committed against them by the transhumanist agenda. So these are significant advances in the war against the transhumanist agenda and these parties. So, Ed, as you were in the city council there, we now have, you were present there, gave testimony, and now we have, in fact, the CBS News report about a week after claiming, oh, we're so overwhelmed with, we can't cope with enforcing this. Could you kind of walk us through with the dynamic that's going on there?
Okay, but let me just ask a question that we can answer later. I'd like to know more about your definition of the transhumanist agenda.
Sure.
At some point. Okay, well, what's happening in Richmond is that I was one of the witnesses there, and it was passed with 2 negative votes by the city council, H.R. 2977. Then it turns out that from everywhere, people are calling with complaints. This is written in, or not complaints, but with concerns about what's happening to them, asking for help. And this was written up in the article you sent to me. So what I see is happening is, one, this shows that Richmond was right, that this is an enormous problem, and that they are actually addressing it at this time. And the second thing is that the police department is getting flooded with calls, so technically they're being overwhelmed by this. And then the next question is, where are all of these calls coming from? We know that there are a very large number of targeted individuals in the United States. I think 300,000 is one number. Was that the number you know, Melanie? 300,000 in the United States?
Yeah, I've heard that, but I've also heard claims, but that might be worldwide, by the investigator Melinda Kidder of about 8 million people falling victim to this. But this could be a worldwide figure. So
no, it's slightly larger than 300,000.
Yeah.
So the one phenomenon that we know in this mess of targeted individuals is that we're assaulted by many methods. The electronic assaults, which are quite bad enough, but then we have gang stalking with people coming up to you, being in your face, breaking and entering, gaslighting by moving and stealing items so that you feel like you're going crazy. I guess that comes from the movie Gaslighting. Right? So we know that there are two prongs to this, that there's the electronic attack, and then there's on-the-ground psychopathic individuals attacking. So we know that there are people there involved doing this, and so the question is, this flooding of the Richmond Police Department by calls, undoubtedly many of them are legitimate from people who are being targeted and are seeking help, because it's very hard to get help, hard as in impossible. But we know that there are these agents out there who are torturing, attacking people, breaking into Melanie's apartment, stealing electronics, stealing documents. So it makes sense that a lot of these calls are maybe coming from agents, simply to wreck the efforts of the police department. And I think this needs to be known by everyone who can learn it, who can understand this. And so it then kind of comes down, comes down to a situation of communication. We need to be communicating all the time and all around. And of course, the world is designed so that that doesn't happen. You read about something in the newspaper. I do this. I send an email. I try to contact the person because of, I think it's significant or interesting. You don't get any response. So I was able to speak to the Richmond City Council, but I haven't been in communication with them since then. And so I'm quite willing to go over to Richmond or practically any place else and address any number of people about what's going on and help as well as I can. But right now, the situation that I can see from what you've told me is that we're being strangled by poor communication, lack of communication. And the system is designed to do just that, so that we don't talk like we're doing now. Melanie, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I think it is very important to maintain this link that we have succeeded in establishing with Richmond, and at least the members of the city council that were open to this. Jovanka Beckers is one. She was certainly the one who brought this, this subject on the table and did everything she could that to promote this resolution to being voted. And I think it's a good opportunity to thank her for that. So I agree. Communication is very important, and I think not only our ongoing conversation with or communication with these officials that we have in Richmond and that did the right thing and in voting for this, but also I think we're now, because this is obviously a global problem. I mean, we've got victims in practically every country around the world. So it's now, I think, very important that we start to establish also contacts between cities. So I know, for example, that Berkeley also, prior to this already, voted this resolution in the city council. So I understand Alfred's friend Laurent Moret, that we sometimes see on Alfred's programs, has been active with this. So what I think is now what we should do is actually promote contacts between these officials that do the right thing that understand the problem and want to prevent people being tortured by these weapons and have understood the danger that these weapons represent, that we promote contacts between the good officials doing the right thing on a really global level. So I have various contacts here at the Etterbeek, at the Brussels City Council. So I think it's now a good time to actually promote contacts between different city councils, different mayors, and police departments to work together on this in a global effort, because it is a global problem.
Now, do you think that if you brought the Richmond Richmond resolution and the Berkeley resolution, together with the text of HR 2977, to the Brussels City Council and showed them all the articles and the footage, that they would consider passing it?
Well, it is still, I think, a long road to go there. I have tried at least start this kind of efforts in organizing, it was on the 28th of February 2014, a meeting with two fellow activists, was attended by the police chief and with the mayor of my district here in Brussels, which is Etterbeek. Well, it was not the mayor who attended personally, it was the secretary of the commune, of the city council, but it's the same thing. And Christian Debatty. So this first meeting was, the objective was to raise awareness with the members of the city councils to this problem, as well as organize stalking and what we were just talking, these Co-Intel-Pro-like activities, like entering people's homes illegally, ransacking their property, and so on, as well as the assaults on citizens with space-based and ground-based weapons, directed energy weapons, and all this plethora of different weapons we're dealing with. So this was the first attempt I made. I think I succeeded. I hope I succeeded in raising at least awareness for this problem, and also with the court systems here in Brussels. Yeah. So, well, to be continued, I would say.
Right. Good. Sorry, Ed. Go ahead.
Well, I would like you to come in at this point, Alfred, and tell us what happened in Canada with HR 2977, because, believe it or not, it wasn't in the newspapers down in the States. But,
well, yeah. Here, as we were talking prior to our off the air, prior to starting our interview here, HR 2977 is actually what we call a Christmas tree bill. It's kind of a cornucopia of a good kind, and there are all kinds of good things in it, because it's a bill that bans all kinds of bad things. What it does is that it bans what I would call the planet killer bill of the dark forces or the conspiracy or the matrix powers or the hidden controllers. Take your term of choice. The military-industrial complex, the War Party, the International War Crimes Racketeering Organization. People have come up for all sorts of descriptors for those people whose only product that they can conceive of is war, crime, disease, and poverty. That's all they know how to produce on a planet. So the ultimate weapon of war is the HAARP chemtrails weapon of mass destruction. And why do I say that? Because that weapon is an environmental weapon that takes actually a component of the planet itself, which is the ionosphere, which is the uppermost component of the atmosphere. It's the layer of the upper atmosphere between the upper atmosphere and space. Beyond the ionosphere is space, and it charges it. It gives it a charge. It ionizes it. So there's an atmosphere-based component to the HAARP chemtrails weapon of mass destruction. Then there's an atmosphere-based component, which are the chemtrails, which Dr. Spencer and Melanie can speak to, which are these nanoparticles in an aerosol, which have multiple components and which have multiple functions. One function of which is to enable and enhance all of the properties of the weapon, but also as nanobots, they're intended to, as a depopulation weapon, number one, for all of the humans in the footprint, and they're routinely sprayed over urban areas throughout the world that are targeted. Now, we've held radio programs with experts like independent scientists Loren Murray and Laurence Battis, who've looked at the HAARP system patterns, and they've shown that Vladimir Putin and the Russians, what they've done is they've turned their HAARP around, because there are these 17 installations of HAARP, one of which is in Russia, and they have dispersed all the HAARP and all the radiation from Russia, so the Russians are not getting HAARPed. And,
wow.
Yeah.
Did you know that, Melanie?
No.
See?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Putin is doing for his people. That's what Putin is doing for his people. They're not getting the Fukushima radiation. They're not getting the chemtrails. That's what Putin is doing for his people. And that's why 120 nations have gone over to BRICS, because the only people that are HAARPing are the people that are under the control of the Bauer family. And I used the Bauer family. I've stopped using their phony name. They used to be called the Bauers. A couple hundred years ago, they changed their name to Rothschild. It's a phony name. It's a mind control name. But they're a German family. I'm Weber. I'm a German family. When my Johann Weber came over from Germany in the early 1700s, there the parish priest changed to WBRE because it's a Francophone area. But we're German also, and so and Melanie, you're German, so the Bauer family is a very bad family, and they're a front for a lot of hidden controllers, and they control the banking interests that control these weather warfare things, and they control what we know as the Western Bloc, the Anglo-American alliance, that is using this HAARP weather warfare as virtual pirates. They've taken over the planet, and they're using depopulation on behalf of hidden controllers that want to bring the population of the planet down to 500 million. So that's why we're going through all of this. And also geoengineering. There might be dimensional other species, Dracos. We'll see. There's a whole science to it in exopolitics, which is beyond the scope of this program. But so there's a history of 2977, and if you go into 2977, there's even a subsection that says extraterrestrial weapons. So it's a very compact piece of legislation. It's a planet saver. Okay? And so it's a miracle, it's a godsend that Richmond, California passed it. So in terms of the transhumanist agenda, Ed, to get back to your question, this piece of legislation is calculated to stop those people, those parties who are primarily, number one, hidden controllers, who are other species, who are descendants of invading giants and coneheads and ancient vampires and other negative ET species, and then comes down to the Bauer family and their other bloodlines, Oppenheimers and all these guys, and Zionists and their kind of fellow travelers. And I use that word because there's a lot of mind control and history behind. Ever since in 1814, the Bauer family took control of the Bank of England, and we went into the war into 1812, 1814, and then 100 years later we went into 1914, World War I, we went to World War II, and now in 2015, they're trying to start World War III. It's the Bauer family acting on behalf of the giants and everybody else. Okay. That's basically what's going on. So that's a quick answer to your question.
Well, I'd like to go over that with you sometime on a separate program.
Sure.
Because the theory that I've developed, which has been substantiated essentially by Akhenaten, is that we're dealing with one species, a large brain hominid.
Yeah.
Akhenaten was such a thing, and that there are no ETs. That the ET genre has been developed essentially to hide what are called cryptoterrestrials, which is to say they've always been here, and they ran the whole world overtly during the Ice Age, and the glacial meltdown was one of the things that took them out of power. I'll just say that, and I think we should have a program on that.
Oh yeah. I do. By the way, I think that there's no contradiction between that theory and others. I mean, I think that they fit very, very nicely. But sure, but that's what's behind this, and that's the full context of HR 2977, and that's why. Yeah, go ahead.
I would like you to give us, all of us, a reference on what Putin has done to turn HAARP around. That is the biggest thing I've heard since Melanie came up with the documents showing that chief of police in Brussels is a suspect. So could you give us a reference on that?
Sure. People can go to our interviews. Just go to newsinsideout.com and then look for an article with independent scientist Loren Murray on the Putin plan. And what the Putin plan is, it's twofold. Number one, you use the Russian HAARP to keep the Western chemtrails and HAARP and Fukushima radiation out of Russia. And then number two, you set up BRICS and the alliance with China with the goal, Russian and China goal, to save the rest of the world from the economic collapse planned by the Bauer family and the Jesuits. That's the Putin plan.
Okay. Well, the Putin plan. Okay.
Very commendable.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I think we had really several examples here that show us very clearly that there are definitely elements in our government and above our government who are directing the actions of our official. Maybe I should report on a recent fact that I found out following this the first meeting we had with the mayor here, which was, as I said, attended by two witnesses, and also the police chief here, Eddie van der Kerkhove, who is the police chief of my district. And this meeting was, well, it has had several objectives. First of all, it was to raise awareness with the city council to these crimes actually, that exist in the community where our residents are assaulted. And then also try to find solution to my personal problem, which is that there are multiple break-ins into my house, regular ransacking of my property and my car.
I would not characterize those as your personal problems. You are the lead liaison from the public interest community that is trying to get HR 2977 into the European Parliament and trying to get all of these measures. You've taken, see, the European regulation that UCATCH published and brought to the European Parliament is based on HR 2977.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
So and ever since you started doing that, there's been an acceleration of the pressure on you.
Correct. Yeah,
so
that's true.
So it's not your personal problems. This is institutional warfare.
Absolutely.
And that's why Dr. Rowney Kilda was assassinated, is because she's part of the European Coalition Against Covert Harassment, similar with the founder of UCATCH, Magnus Olsson, who now has been in hospital, has had extreme targeting of his heart, and his mother, who's a nurse, has been targeted. It's because this is a counterattack by these Bauer family and New World Order forces, because UCATCH is bringing HR 2977 into the European Parliament and doing and bringing all the knowledge that Dr. Spencer and bringing all the scanning of the citizens, and so these forces are now counterattacking, and it's nothing to do with you personal. It's impersonal.
No, absolutely. I mean, I just during the meeting I explained to them, of course, that this is not only a European but a global problem, and that all of the victims I've spoken to and speak for, that we have scanned for radio frequency emissions to prove possible non-consensual implantation with nanotechnology weapons, which then interact with satellite or ground-based installations to assault these individuals. I said that, well, all of them, the ones that I had spoken to, also reported illegal entries into their home, ransacking of their property, tampering with their mails, their emails, their electronic devices. So it's very common that these go together. But in this meeting was, I said, well, it's a global problem. This is what the victims report, and this is what we could prove. I explained them the radio frequency scanning that we did in a controlled environment and Faraday cage. So all this, and then I said, and I happen to be part of, a victim of these assaults too. And this is what I was saying, and I showed them photographs of all the damage that had been done in my apartment. But you're very right, Alfred. I mean, this happens to most of the victims of these crimes I have spoken to, at least. And what I think is interesting to say is that the secretary of the council, who spoke for the mayor, Mr. Christian Debatty, who spoke for our mayor, Vincent de Boer, said immediately upon seeing these photos, said, but this is vandalism. This is terrible. And he looked at the police chief and said, well, chief, what can we do to help here? Because I had filed various complaints before and nothing had been done about it. So, the police chief then, Eddie van der Kerkhove, said that, yes, it's true. Well, every time somebody enters your home and every time there's a new break-in, you come to me personally and you file a complaint. And the mayor also had told me to do that. Said every time somebody gets into your home, every time damage is done, you go to the police and you report it. And they should do a report, and it should be sent to the prosecutor, which I also did. So I, try to be very regular and very consistent with my reporting system. I gave them the photos on a CD and of all the damage that had been done, and when this damage occurred. So what I think is very concerning is that despite this disagreement at this meeting, which was, to say it again, in the presence of the victim, the Belgian activist Jean Verstraeten, who has been fighting these crimes for decades, over 30 years, I think, and another fellow victim and also an activist, especially for the chemtrails, Miss Janine Perez. So, and the mayor and the police chief, so there are various witnesses, obviously, to this conversation and the agreements that had been taken, is that now when I went to court to consult my file, because, again, nothing had been done, and there was no follow-up to this, and the break-ins continued, and I had the police over also to file a report on all the damage, is that I asked the prosecutor Mr. Van Oudenhoven, to view my file at court. And this is where the very concerning part comes in. I found the report that Chief Eddie van der Kerkhove did after our meeting with the mayor. And he writes here something which is in total contradiction. It's just not true. To the agreements taken at the meeting. He writes that we had this meeting on 28th of February 2014 at 9:30 in the morning, and that I myself, accompanied by two witnesses, had very delusional accounts of people entering into my house and ransacking my property, and intrusions into my brain, because I had given them the report about the radio frequency scanning in the Faraday cage, of people that do not leave a trace, which is just not a correct form of reporting what I had said. And it seems that it's very clear that these are delusional accounts and fantasies which are unreal.
So he made a diagnosis right there.
Absolutely, yeah. So as police chief, he did a diagnosis. I will send these reports to Alfred, so we can add them to the program, to the article about the program. So this is obviously, I think, I'm very surprised that is even that blatant to state something which, in the presence of three witnesses and myself, is completely does not reflect the reality of what has been said in our conversation. So the only thing what I think he didn't think what would happen is that I would ask Prosecutor Van Oudenhoven to be provided access to my files, and that I would find out about this very incorrect, to say the least, police report that he filed after the meeting with the mayor.
Right. Now, Dr. Spencer, you're an MD. I have a degree from a graduate degree from the University of Texas as a counselor, which is counseling psychotherapy. In your opinion, was a police chief being mind controlled in doing that, or did he intentionally do that as a condition of his work, as part of a kind of a hidden network?
Well, I don't know, of course, because we find this sort of activity so frequently. I think that the bribe is widespread, and the bribe can consist of, being able to keep a job. You lose your job if you tell the truth. That goes on all the time. The mind control aspect is also a massive problem. I'm quite sure of this. And I don't know exactly how it works, but what it seems to me from numerous observations is that it will take somebody that we're not alone, and none of us are alone. We have to assume that over the horizon radar, EEG, heterodyning supercomputers have access to our brains. So I'll say that, so that people don't know this. Most people do not know that this is possible, and they will go so far as to deny that it's possible, and they will say that there's no possibility that they're being mind controlled. Which
it's certainly correct, Ed. But what I think is interesting here is that okay, there's obviously the fear of losing their job or being victim also to some kind of pressures. That I do not deny this, but what I think is very interesting in this fact, and I will, give all these police reports and their English translation to Alfred, so we can publish that, is that actually the employee of Chief Eddie van der Kerkhove, the inspector, Mrs. Stephanie Paulette, who is my regular contact, and who knows me, he knows the file, and who also knows that my work I do with the European Parliament, and is aware of the scannings we did with the radio frequency scannings in the Faraday cage with the International Center Against Abuse of Covered Technologies, isaactor.org. So what is interesting here is that Mrs. Paulette is actually the subordinate of Police Chief Eddie van der Kerkhove. She, for her part, writes a complete different account and a complete different report about my complaints. She said it's quite correct what she writes. She said that on 7th of April 2014, Ms. Richmond presented herself again to file a complaint in our offices, and was again victim of various ransacking activities in her apartment. And she also asked myself how was I feeling in general, and I reported that this is something Alfred and I discussed on another program, that I was very tired and strangled with this technology that I have in my throat that actually menaces my life, and that I still had not found a surgeon willing to operate me. She would also like to underline that I'm no threat to myself or to anybody else. So her report actually contradicts Mr. van der Kerkhove's report.
It really does look like. It really looks like that is a very conscious lie. But I was talking about mind control, which may involve people who are not consciously lying. And I wanted to finish what that is.
Yeah, so that the fact that I was trying to see as a judge, because I'm a judge on the Transhumanist Agenda War Crimes Tribunal, which is at www.warcrimestribunal.org. And what we're doing here is that we're examining this piece of evidence because it seems to me quite reasonable. I was asking the question as to whether the actions of the chief of police of Brussels were as a result of the fact that he was mind controlled into doing that, in which case his free will would not be involved, or whether that was a free will prevarication of his, either under duress of employment or whether he willingly, as part of a mind control faction that has seized control of the government and apparatus of Belgium, did this. That is, went against the clear findings of of his subordinate who is in touch with the community. And he so did this case, thereby committing a war crime in the preliminary finding of the judge of the War Crimes Tribunal, who I am, and this is an informal preliminary hearing, I so by declare. As a common law court, we have the jurisdiction to do this. So that was the purpose of my question.
Well, I would say that this is...
If I could just add, not only one of his subordinates, Inspector Stephanie Paulette, writes the correct account and report. There's also a second one, who's also one of his subordinates, the Inspector Charlotte Cordy. All of these documents will be available after the program, who came together with a colleague to my house to actually view and make a report of all the damages that had been, that have been done to my flat. She writes them all down here, and she made me sign this report and said I would get a copy of it, which I never got, but I now got it via the prosecutor. And she just writes down all of the different damage that has occurred, that she, and says that I have changed, which is true, my locks 3 times. And despite all this, the illegal entries into my home continues. So that we have here a second police officer who's also Charlotte Cordy, who's also subordinate to Mr. Eddie van der Kerk, or the police chief, who also writes a contradictory report to his. So I think that's quite remarkable.
Well, I think it is the free will thing, but I hope before this is over, I can continue talking about mind control.
Oh, yeah, please.
Because that's it. Because I've experienced this, and I know others who seem to be experiencing it. And it's a very subtle thing. We have the V2K, the voice within the head, which of course can be very loud, can be someone seems to be speaking to you, or sounds are there. But also your own voice can be whispered to you, can be recorded, and so what you think are your thoughts are not really your thoughts. And what it seems is that, there are, of course, limits, I think, to what this technology can do at this point. It also can instill emotions. It can have people have sexual experiences and a number of things like that. But it seems to me that it takes someone and pushes them more into what they want to be. If they want to hide, if they don't want to believe that there is any possibility of conspiracy, it pushes them that way. If they feel that money is the most important thing, and if you make money it solves everything, they get pushed that way. It's not total robotization, mind control. They can't. I don't think at this point they can't go to a 14-year-old girl in Des Moines and have her decide that she wants to be a sumo wrestler. But it works with what's there and pushes it down a pathway that is not going to be productive for solving the problems. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I think I'm seeing, and I'm heavily hit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So how do you come out then on where we are with regard to Brussels and where we are with regard to the Richmond HR 2977? Have we broken through? Have we made important breakthroughs right now by exposing the chief of police of Brussels on worldwide TV as part of a criminal gang that is trying to cover up mind control victims like Melanie, who's trying to get the law changed so these weapons can't be used, And have we broken through in Richmond, where we have now a law that's been passed, and it's a tsunami because the police chief, coincidentally, his name is Chris Magnus, just like Magnus Olsen.
That's that's Captain. Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Captain Gagan.
So that there, the people have the tools. Now, we don't know who gave the order for the TI network to flood the calls. Maybe they got together and they said, look, we now have a thing. We're tired of getting continually bombarded in our apartments. Like, I know that Melanie, day in and day out, she doesn't know how long she's going to live. Mm-hmm. We have a project. Right. We have to get life-saving surgery to Melanie. And last week, the MRI, I think it was, or the CAT scan was stolen.
The CT scan.
The CT scan was stolen from her doctor's reports by the same person who's part of the criminal network that the police chief of Brussels is now part of. So that's what we're dealing with.
A lot of conspiracy going on here.
Yeah.
I'll say, well, I think that, the word breakthrough is I think, I'm not sure that we can easily use that word in this situation, because the one thing about the tyranny, the high cabal, that's what I guess Churchill's term, is they keep coming. Remember, after World War I, conspiracy, of course, we had the League of Nations. That didn't work out. Now we've got the United Nations. Same thing. Polished up. It's still coming. And we've got Jade Helm out there, which I think maybe we can slow down and stop. But it's going to keep coming. It'll change the name. They'll move things around, add on. They keep coming. So if you seem to have a breakthrough, you have to realize you don't rest. You keep fighting.
Oh, yeah.
But we have to put them out of business completely.
That's very important. Mm-hmm.
We have to put the high cabal totally out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see what they try next. And I'm going to try and get over to Richmond and talk to people. Well,
I think in this context, it would be interesting to mention that my ENT doctor and as well a friend and a radiologist that Dr. Spencer and I are often in contact with saw my CT scan, the images, and both said immediately, well, the hyoid bone has been displaced, And both used the term, it has been displaced. So, and what could displace it is obviously the strangulation technology, which, in applying an enormous amount of pressure on my neck.
And just to explain it for people who haven't been watching our series, that technology was built by Motorola.
Correct. Yeah.
At the request of DARPA.
DARPA. Yeah.
Right. And Barack Obama, who went on the CIA Mars program with Regina Dugan. Mm-hmm. Regina Dugan became his first director of DARPA.
Correct.
And then she went on to Motorola.
Yeah.
So they have to be complicit in this program.
Absolutely. So that they're the fabricants of this strangulation technology, of this weapon. So both of them immediately looked at the images, my ENT doctor with me, and he also used the term, it has been displaced. So the radiologist had not mentioned anything about this. He basically wrote that everything's normal and that there's nothing and it's all fine. So I then asked my ENT doctor, I said, well, could you please go back to the radiologist and make him change this report? And he said, okay, no problem. And he did do that. And what comes back, and because we're talking about cover-ups, and I'll now have to think how to react on this, is that he did change the report, but what does he say in his new report? He says, well, the hyoid bone, it is just an anatomical variant. It is just, it's nothing with consequences or nothing to worry about. It's just a different anatomy.
No.
Right.
So this is obviously part of a cover-up strategy.
Yeah. Whereas there's clear probable cause from the medical evidence, which kicked it up, and every time that you try to get approval for the surgery, they either hide the evidence or send it to someone in the medical community who's part of the criminal network, the same criminal network that the chief of police of Brussels is a part of. Mm-hmm. So what we have to do is start writing down the full name, rank, serial number, name, and address of everybody on that criminal network and send their names with full particulars to the Transhumanist Agenda War Crimes Tribunal.
Mm-hmm. We will do that.
And to the authorities, to other authorities. I'm sure that there are other authorities with concurrent jurisdiction over the police department of Brussels. Doesn't the European Union have a criminal justice department?
They do, but what I could already do, what I know for sure, is that also the Belgian police has an oversight body where you can write to and complain, and I will definitely do this. I think there's enough probable cause.
A citizen, so that, is there a citizen complaint board for the police, for the Belgian police, where
yes, there is.
Citizens have oversight and complaint over the Belgian police? This is a perfect case to go, because it's documented with a complaint against the chief of police of Belgium, of Brussels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. You can send this tape along with it, because Dr. Spencer is a medical doctor. I am an attorney in the District of Columbia, and I'm a judge on the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal and on the Transhumanist Agenda War Crimes Tribunal. Those are two citizens' tribunals.
Yeah, we should definitely address that.
Former member of the Belgian Parliament, Laurent Louis, has been an advisor and part of that tribunal.
Yes, he is. That's correct. He also got a copy of Dr. Spencer's letter, actually, to my ENT.
Yeah.
Because which is even more, I think, incriminating in this case is that also the police chief, and I mean all of the members of the police I'm dealing with here, had an affidavit of Dr. Hildegard Stenninger, and also gave it to my ENT doctor, describing toxologist who was actually describing this technology, this strangulation technology, which comprises a recording device in your throat and also a lead into your tongue, a cable into your tongue. So everything you said is being recorded, and it can constrict the windpipe and you can die. So they all had this affidavit of Dr. Stenninger also was provided to the police.
Right.
So the cover-up is very clear.
Yeah. So this is a complaint that can go, in a doc, like all of those can be attachments with a cover that explains it to the citizens complaint body of the Belgian police.
Yeah, will do. No. And just to finish this up, when I was at the court yesterday, I because I also had noticed that some of my documents or evidence, pieces of evidence when I consulted the file, I didn't find them. So this time, every time now I ask for a stamp of receipt, a proof of receipt. So I actually handed in Dr. Spencer's email where he talks about also the resolution that has, just been passed at Richmond, and the strangulation technology and the illegal break-ins. He wrote a quite comprehensive email about all these crimes and all these facts. And I asked the Brussels prosecutor staff to give me a stamp that this email has been received as pieces of evidence. So
good.
So they have no excuse that I didn't know about it.
Right.
Sorry.
So
my phone rings.
Now there's almost a so where do you think, getting back over now to HR 2977, we've got that settled for our next step in Brussels and in Belgium. Let's go back over now to our next step in HR 2977. Because I can see, as you said, out of the CBS article, that article could be planted to cause confusion and chaos in people's minds. Is that kind of the one of the points that you were trying to make, Dr. Spencer?
That it was disinformation.
Well, not so much disinformation, but it's an article that showed that everybody in Richmond, California, was throwing up their hands. The mayor and the city councilor said, I don't even want to make a statement because I don't want to embarrass other city councilors. One of the city councilors who voted for it said, I wish I hadn't voted for it. The police chief comes out and says, we don't know what to do. We're getting flooded with calls. And all of a sudden, if you're inundated on, a week after the thing passes, if you're inundated with an organized wave of 100 calls an hour, right?
Right,
It seems like some kind of organized wave to cause chaos, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and we have to look into it to see if we can identify that. I think it's there.
Yeah. Because we've already gotten through Skype some comments from one person who's an activist in this area, saying, "Oh, this is not giving a good name to the Space Preservation Act because look, we don't even know who wrote the CBS piece." Wait, let me see.
Oh yeah.
Hold on. Let me.
Yeah, let's find out that is because
the CBS piece. Let me see if there's an author there. No, there's no author, but all the facts are there. But it's kind of it's hard to actually. It looks like what they're doing is they might be accurately portraying what the situation is, but it looks like what they're because they didn't follow up on any of the calls. What they're doing is just painting the picture of Mayor Tom Butt. The councilman who voted against it, their name was Pimple. So Pimple and Butt voted.
Oh yeah, unfortunately.
I've got a pimple on my butt.
Oh,
I mean, it's just managed news, and although it kind of illustrates the sort of mind control that has been used in the MK Ultra program to get people into public office, which is true. But if it were true journalism, and it was a real journalist, they would go and find out who's calling, like you said, Dr. Spencer.
Yeah. And it's fine. There'd be a name, right?
Yeah. They would say, Mrs. Such and Such called or Mr. Such and Such called, and they were hearing voices at night, or they were having holographic images of aliens, reptilian aliens, being shown to them every evening. And I know that that's a report that many targeted individuals say. Correct, Melanie?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can confirm that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what happens. I mean, people who are targeted individuals will be sitting there in their office, and all of a sudden they have holograms of aliens talking at them, and and of all these, and of horror stories going on, or all kinds of stuff. They have voice to skull going on, telling them, all hours of the day, and this
24/7. Yeah.
These are just experiments that are being run on, very suppressive principles, very negative psychological principles to ground people down into the ground, to make them guided missiles out in public, to tell them the most horrible things, to do, to make their self-image be really horrible. And it's all on orders from the hidden controllers from the Bauer family on down, or on up, or whatever. And they're just a bunch of hidden controllers that are trying to keep some stupid control of the planet because they don't have as powerful souls as we have, or they're involved in some sort of rebellion, or they have a negative self-image, or they're afraid of death. That's, it's some limited reason. That's what's going on. So we have to do simultaneous things. We have to get the mind control weapons stopped. Then we have to get in negotiations with the controllers, or either that or to push them out of the scene. And then, bring and rehabilitate the victims and re-empower the target individuals and bring them back into normal life. And get the police chief of Brussels and try him and convict him and put him back into community service and restorative justice. I mean, a guy like that, what's he doing? Why, that's not what police service is about. Is he part of the pedophile? Is he controlling the pedophile networks in Brussels? Also, if he is, he's in a lot of trouble, I'll tell you that.
Well, I don't know about that, but what I think we have no trouble proving is that he deliberately filed a false police report.
Yeah.
In direct contradiction with two of his colleagues, actually, subordinates on top of it. So
yeah,
it doesn't look good for him, I would say. If you look at it objectively.
Yeah. These guys always take the easy way out. You find that they're suicided at their desk.
Yeah, it's true. But I think what we have to do now is encourage and stimulate good people and good officials, like Jovanka Beckers, like Mrs. Stephanie Paulet, who filed a correct report.
Yeah.
And if it's possible to get the good people and the ones that want to do the right thing, in contact, so that we can stimulate some kind of, twin city contact, or just exchange experiences and and best practices.
Yeah.
Something like this. I think, Ed, we should try to stimulate and to encourage.
Yeah. So let's get over to HR 2977. We're going to move forward with the citizen complaint against the police chief in Brussels.
Yeah.
That guy's got a lot to answer for. Yeah. Now, HR 2977, it looks like it needs a lot of healing. And at the city council there, because it looks like they've been stirred up by some kind of strange TI operation, and we want to know who's behind that TI operation, because people in the TI community, there's a gamut. You know, I mean, there's a whole gamut in there. Ed, what strategy do you think we should be adopted to begin to turn the enforcement situation around? We have a divided and confused city council now. We have a police chief who's throwing up his hands, and we have councilmen who are sniping at each other.
Right.
As reported in this, the department does not have the resources to field such a large number of calls, Magnus says. But said his office had been receiving requests for help, including a message from a woman living in her car in Carson City, Nevada, who says she has been electronically stalked, but has received no help from law enforcement. The complaints appear to be coming from a worldwide network of people who think they are under constant assault from some technology and refer to themselves as targeted individuals.
Yeah, this is the, what are you reading from there?
I'm reading from the CBS article.
CBS, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to get to the TI networks and ask them to not call Richmond, because Richmond can't help. Richmond has just come out and said, this looks like it's a big problem, and we don't want it going on.
But Richmond passed the resolution.
Yeah.
You see? In other words, when you do something at a city council, you either stand behind your words or you run for the hills. Now, that's the law of Richmond. So why not stand up? Either the police of California, okay, there's plenty of jobs that are needed in California. If I worked for the city of Richmond, California, or I work for the city council, reach out to the TI community, get somebody, pay them $10 an hour, and they're the information person. Get somebody to take down the names and numbers. Look, there's no support for TIs. At least have an electronic help desk, either as part of your city structure or as part of your police department. The office, IACT, that was the liaison that got this passed, they've been in dialogue with this police department for over a year. This police department now has enough pressure that they should set up a liaison. And
you're right.
So you hire somebody, $10 an hour, and you start setting up a database. And you do something useful for fucking once instead of like busting everybody's chops. You live up to the letter of the law. What's the big deal? It's not that you don't have officials, it's that you don't have your workforce designed properly to meet the obligations. You've got to catch up to 2015, to the 21st century. You've got to catch up to the crimes. They're still trying to stop 19th century crimes in the 21st century. The perps in the 21st century are funded by the banks, by the Bauer family. And they're infiltrated into the police department itself, into criminal networks. You know, they came out during the Bush administration, the Reagan administration, Bush 1, Bush 2, Clinton, all the electronic cop toys. They're using them on their own people. Well, first of all, that means that Richmond, California can't use the cop toys on its own people. That's what it means. That's the law that they passed.
When did the CBS article come out?
Oh, today. I saw it today.
Today, yeah.
I don't know if it came out today. Maybe it came out yesterday. But
it means that Well,
I saw it today. Maybe it is from yesterday.
Using a stock photo of Police Chief Chief Magnus from November 2nd, 2009. It's June 2nd, 2015. And what they're doing is that the City Council of Richmond, California passed the law prohibiting the use of their cop toys in their cop cars to zap people. Tough. It's tough. They can't keep on zapping people. They got to sit back. I'm sorry. I know that Homeland Security and Jade Helm is the rollout of all these toys to even super zap people. They even have boatloads. If you listen to the reporting of Loren Murray and Lawrence Batis, which I urge everybody to listen to, just go to newsinsideout.com where this report is, and you'll see that Richmond, California, Berkeley, California, San Francisco, they're installing street lights that have mind control technology built into the street light. So they're zapping all the citizenry all the time. Well, this law prohibits that.
Yeah.
Because it says you can't use space-based weapons. And as soon as you've weaponized the geostationary satellite system, which you're using for this, it's a space-based weapon. Get it?
Okay. Yep. Got it. Well, I haven't heard anything from ICAACT on this yet because the whole object was to develop a system that would help the police, and see, this is, I guess, just the time to do it.
So I believe, Dr. Spencer, that you are correct, that because the community group, the citizens group, IACT, which has been in liaison with the police department responsibly, is not even mentioned here, that this is an attempt at sabotage by some covert group that is in liaison with the agenda to install all of this mind control weaponry that is being outlawed by this resolution. And this is part of the mind control war. So that's what it is. And that if you were to go with a delegation and explain to them that that they've been inundated by calls, but that, hey, this is a problem, and that they just need responsibly to set this up and to begin to deal with what was mandated there, then everybody can move ahead. Yes, it is different. You're beginning to regulate an area of banker-led crime, namely the Bauer family and the Bilderbergers and and the monarchies and DARPA and the Rockefellers and the Trilateral Commission, all of whom set out the mind control weapons as the way to go, because they want to robotize the planet, because they don't believe in the human soul, because they don't have it. They gave up on it.
Yeah.
So that, or if they have them, they're in complete denial about the purpose of a planet.
Well, I definitely think they should set up a desk, to deal with all these requests. I mean,
it's like no big deal.
The motion passed, so
it's just the law.
Yeah.
Well, I'll as soon as possible, I'll be on the phone to Jesse Beltran and Jovanka Beckless and Amy Anderson to see what's cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Or what we need to, what's cooking, or what we need to start cooking if nothing's cooking.
Yeah. I mean, this CBS article is like, it's very strange, don't you think so?
Well, it looks like it's one of those plant pieces.
Yeah.
To not inform, but to get a reaction, create a reaction.
Yeah, I think it's also an obvious attempt of cover-up again, because it talks about mental illness and conspiracy theories and people that are using this motion now to validate some crazy conspiracy theories. So I think we have to react, we should commend the good officials in Richmond, but we should also remind them of that this is now law, and that a desk has to be set up to handle all these complaints.
So that CBS appears to be a disinformation.
It looks like it. Yeah.
It looks like CBS of the mainstream media so far. CBS is a disinformation.
Right. There we go.
CBS is a disinformation broadcaster.
Mm-hmm.
Well, have you found any actual information broadcasters out there in the mainstream
that are accurate on sensitive areas?
Yeah, to tell the whole truth. I don't slant everything.
Oh yeah, I mean they're all slanted toward their particular thing. I read RT as my main news source because it's.
Yeah, me too.
At least you get more facts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Laurent Louis says that too. Yeah. Right. So I think that's a way to go and to deal with Richmond, and I will certainly file a complaint to the Citizens Committee and the Committee of Oversight of the Belgian Police.
Yeah, and I think that may I suggest this both to Melanie and to Dr. Spencer, to encourage genuine TIs and the TI community to write letters, genuine letters and emails to the City Council, people that voted for the resolution, of thanks, and to write genuine letters to the police chief and to the police department, thanking them, and with administrative suggestions as to how, his name is Chris Magnus. And with suggestions as to how they could set up their administrative setup to be able to administer this and be a service to the community and still administer the law.
Yeah.
That they don't have to, throw up their hands.
Yeah. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a good idea and a good project. So I think what is important now is that we have to support the ones that that did the right thing,
right,
and to encourage them to stand by their decision.
Yeah.
And also I think actually CBS News should be flooded by letters to underline that this is the real problem,
Yeah.
And that the motion, that the passing of the motion in Richmond was highly welcomed,
Yeah.
Because at the moment it seems to be only Richmond that is flooded. Well, it should actually also the reporters there at CBS should be, getting some kind of feedback.
Yeah.
Especially if they create disinformation.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Yeah, very, very good. Now, I'd like to ask each of you, is there anything that you want to cover that we haven't covered yet?
I don't think so at this point. I've got some tasks that I need to do before reporting back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should shortly mention our project with filmmaker Edmond Douillet.
Okay.
Yeah.
About the situation of targeted individuals, victims of these crimes. Well, not today, but we have the project of of doing a documentary with including our experts and really good and credible victims. Should also give testimonies for a good documentary about these crimes, about their situations, and that we will soon launch a crowdfunding initiative.
Oh, good.
Yes.
For this project.
Great. Yeah. So this will bring more information out to the marketplace, so people will begin to know that this is true, so that when outfits like CBS try to put disinformation, it's amazing.
Exactly.
CBS,
yeah,
trying to put confusion out into the marketplace to support HART and all the confusion makers. Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yeah.
Just quite amazing.
Yeah, but we will report on this on our next project, not next program. I mean.
Yeah. Good.
But this is definitely a project that we're pursuing.
Oh, excellent.
Right.
Excellent.
Yes.
Good. Well, I want to thank you both, Dr. Edward Spencer, MD, and Melanie Richan of the European Coalition Against Covert Harassment, ucatch.org, for your work and for your participation in this important program. And you can see that things are really moving. Thank you both, and we look forward to your continued participation with us, and that you'll join us again in the future as events develop.
Thank you, Alfred.
And also thank you for your good work.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.